Hello, everybody. We have Vanessa Abbe with us today. Have you been considering where you're traveling in 2025, anywhere in the world? Then I have one of the most well-traveled guests on the show today, Vanessa Abbe. Thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to start with such an incredibly adventurous life you've had. You've literally traveled the globe, Vanessa, and it's really the inspiration for the new company you're launching. So tell us about it.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I have traveled the globe very extensively, or at least I like to think so. There's obviously people that have traveled way more than me, but at this point, I think I've visited, I'm almost at 40. I think 40 countries will happen in March when I visit New
Incredible.
Zealand. But I have traveled all across North, Central, South America, Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Asia. So, I have Oceania and the Antarctic left really to touch.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I many of those countries I've been to more than once. So, Italy I've been to more than 15 times, Brazil easily over 20 times with some of the work I've done before. So, it's allowed me to see countries in ways that a lot of people don't get the opportunity to experience and build connection and relationships. And so, given this experience and my love of travel, I decided to go out on my own and become an independent travel advisor. I'm affiliated with a company called Fora.
Hmm.
So they're a modern travel agency. They're a startup company.
Oh,
And what's
interesting.
really fascinating about them is they have a huge network that I can tap into to gain travel insights, book amazing experiences that might be a little bit more difficult on your own,
Right.
and loving really working with people and creating a really personal experience, right? So, how do we create a trip that's meaningful to you for what your interests are, what you are celebrating? And so, I've just really enjoyed that.
So I have three experiences. And when you shared with me, Vanessa, what you're building in a time and in an environment that I feel is really lackluster, if we will, in customer service and that concierge way, that
Yeah.
highly elevated, you pick up the phone, you have a human being on the other end, and you have somebody that has your back and will help you build a perfectly curated trip that can come in 24/7 when there's an issue going on in your journey. And you're
Yep.
able to have a resolution and you're not going it alone, especially when you're in a foreign country, right?
Yeah. And
It's a
for
real
some,
thing.
it's a real thing. And what I have found as I've worked with more clients, because I travel so much, I'm used to dealing with whatever happens because when you travel, oh, something's always going to go wrong. And so I've gotten feedback from my clients now saying, Vanessa, I'm really glad you helped us plan this. You helped us with small things like, hey, Florence has two train stations, or Venice has two train stations. You told us which one to get off on, so we weren't lost, right? Or, I've had a couple celebrating anniversaries, so how do we make it special, right? As you can tell, Italy's a theme, but for them, right, we curated a very special vineyard visit with one of my dear friends that did a personalized wine tasting, right? So there's lots of different ways to make it tailored to what you like to experience.
Well, and I really think that when you have an expert who knows an area so well, you're really able to take what would be an ordinary experience and create something that's extraordinary as a memory, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and especially if it's a multifaceted travel journey where you're having to commute to multiple countries to get to your end game and then get back again, navigating all of the issues that come with passports or international flights, dealing with time changes. And then, of course, I think the most important piece, how are you traveling through this journey? Are
Yeah,
you finding a private driver or where are you staying? And when you've got somebody like yourself that has experienced and knows the best restaurant, the best bar, the best espresso, the best seafood, the best place to stay, the best, you want a bed and breakfast or do you want a luxury 5-star hotel? Do you want to experience both? I
Yep.
think it's incredibly brilliant and a rare find. There's very few people out there that are still offering that service on this level, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
how are
And I
you
think it,
building it?
you
Like,
hit it on.
how do people find you then? Like, how does it work?
Um, yeah, well, you can. I have a website page which gives a little bit of background about myself and my travel experiences, some photography, because I'm also a travel photographer when I travel. And so I don't know, Cari Ann, if you have show notes, but I'm happy to provide my web page and my Instagram account
We
as well
do.
as a email address. So any of those ways you can reach out to me. And usually, when I work with clients, the first thing I like to do, which some might say is a little bit old school, but I really like to just sit down and have a conversation and understand, what's your experience traveling before? What are you nervous about? What are you excited to see? What are must-sees? Because that gives
Hmm.
me a way to start to say to you, okay, here's what I think we could do, and here's where I think we'd go directionally. What's your feedback, right? And
That's
once we get
brilliant.
agreement, yeah, I guess I want to start off on the right foot and make sure I understand what your needs and desires are. And then from there, we agree upon, the scope of what I'm going to plan for you, the cost. And then I start to build out, if you choose an itinerary, right? Start to build that out. And we work in an iterative way, right? It's not a once and done thing because that's not a good
No,
feeling.
it
So,
doesn't work that way. It can take many,
and
many conversations.
yeah. And
I
you don't
have
always know
one.
what you want until you see it. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh
interrupt you.
no, I call that the ideation session.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
that brainstorming that happens from somebody, like it's like going into my real estate background into a design meeting. You're
Yep.
really like, what is it that you really want to get out of this? Like, what is it that, what kind of experience do you want to have? And I think that's the missing link in all things right now, in
Yeah.
all service industries right now, as they're trying to automate so much of the work. We're
Yeah.
missing that connectivity of really the creme brulee, I call it. Like this is what would make it seamless, the
Yeah.
experience fluid, where you're able to obtain like this really awesome outcome that you're like, wow, I will never ever forget that trip. So let's say
Exactly.
somebody calls you, says they want to go to Brazil. What would that look like for them? Give the
Like
audience an example.
a trip. Well, it would kind of depend what you like to do. Do you like to see, well, first I like to hear from you, of course, but I'll give you the coaching that I might give someone, right? Do you like historic sites? Do you like the beaches? Do you like the jungle? Um, are you interested in food and wine? Because frankly, Brazil does have a wine region that's not too shabby. So it's really understanding your travel preferences. And I will say, you don't have to know exactly. So once you just give me some perspectives of what you like, okay, then I might say, let me build your itinerary. That's one service. I have others, and we can talk about that. But I might suggest that you come to Rio for a bit and spend some time on the beaches there. There's neighborhoods that are not part of the typical tourist agenda that I actually prefer over something like Ipanema or Copacabana. um, there's hidden gems there's a national park in the very northeast corner of Brazil called Lençóis de Maranhense, and it's a place where they have um, these beautiful white sand dunes. And during our summer, their winter, there's an ecosystem that comes alive with the rains and these
Wow,
big lakes of pools of water. And you can visit, you can fly over it, you can travel, through it via the river. So those are the things that, depending on how comfortable you are, I might recommend. Or there's Pantanal, which is the also a nature reserve with lots of waterfalls and an ecosystem with jaguars and little baby foxes and different things like that that most
incredible.
Americans don't know about, right? So that's why I ask the basic questions of what you like, because then we can, tailor it to what your preferences are.
That's amazing. So I'm assuming like the other leg of this is now you know where you're going and you figure out the like how many days Are you fortunate
Mhm.
enough to go and travel these
Exactly.
beautiful places, right? And then there's the nuances of defining the pattern of travel, the
That's a
travel
point.
plan,
Hmm.
the places you go. It's so valuable. So
Yeah.
those
Well,
connections.
especially if you're not comfortable with new places or you're feeling uncomfortable with the language, right? Brazil as an example, most people don't speak Portuguese, right? So that's really intimidating. So, how do we get you landed at the airport, feeling safe, get you a driver to take you to the hotel? How are you going to get to some of these, if we choose a place like I mentioned, how do we get you there that, in a way that makes you feel safe and comfortable? And I think that's the beauty of using someone like myself because I take those little details off your plate that you don't have to figure out and hopefully minimize the, oh my God, I didn't think about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not using me to plan the whole trip, that's okay too, because sometimes you might find value from me in helping you research a destination. So you might say, Vanessa, I can do this, but I want to go somewhere tropical and warm. Where would you recommend? And give
Right.
me some reasons why you would travel there. Or I don't know how to get my airplane tickets booked. What would you recommend for an airline or the route that I take, right? So it could be as simple as travel research, just booking hotels, or even just creating a short list of things for you to see, I don't know, when you're visiting Paris, right? So it doesn't have to be a day by day itinerary.
Right. Well, you're curating it absolutely to what they
Yes.
desire in terms of assistance. So that could
Hmm.
be, and I'm sure you've run into situations where they start at a place where they think they just need this pillar of help and it evolves into something entirely different. Most
Yeah. Or
certainly.
or someone might say, I'm going to use my points and book a hotel, and they choose the hotels, and I start to look at it and where they're wanting to spend their time, right? And gently, share that, that hotel is an hour away from where you want to be spending your time. Should we maybe look at some other options so that you're
Mhm.
using your time in a more valuable way?
So you're
So,
not in the car so much. Yeah, that's a real
exactly.
thing when you're
Yeah.
traveling abroad is your how much time quantifying how much time you are driving to get to your
Yep.
destinations. And there are certainly experiences that there are no choices, but maybe the journey you take if you have a lot of traveling to do, allows for some stopping points that would be
Yep.
meaningful, that would just simply not be on the radar to what I call a civilian, a person who just doesn't really know, right?
Yeah.
So if let's say somebody wants to plan a tropical trip this first quarter coming off of our, we're actually having a mild winter here, but certainly it's going to shift and people are going to want to travel in January and February. I'm sure there's some preferred opportunities that maybe are more valuable than others, both in weather pattern and financially. What would be your top three picks for a value add here to your audience?
Okay. Well, maybe these aren't all the most cost effective,
Mm. Yeah.
but the things that come to me right away is one, I always love going to Belize because even in Minnesota, right, in a northern state in the US, it's not actually that long of a trip to get there, and they speak English and use the US dollar. So it's not such a culture shock. Many people are probably familiar with this, but Costa Rica is another fabulous place to go. It has a lot of diversity if you like mountains and beaches and adventure or just to relax, right? All those
Oh,
desires can be satisfied through Costa Rica. And then, with Fora, we sometimes share insights with our clients. And this year we created a 2025 hot list. And a place that is showing up now is Nicaragua. So very
interesting.
specific parts there, but there's some really cool things to experience and can be safe, right? But that you might not otherwise have tried because it's just not a place you think of to travel to,
Right.
right? Given what you
Right.
hear in the news. So
Yeah.
that I'm thinking about US, near the US, that wouldn't be so difficult to travel to. So
Mhm.
I guess all my recommendations happen to be in Central America, but
Yeah.
here we are. But there's a lot of cool places that you could go to. And, as I said before, it really depends what you're interested in because each place has a certain je ne sais quoi.
Oh, perfectly said. That is so true. So if you were to pick your three top favorites that are non-tropical and experiential and historic, what would they be?
Historic ones. Well, I always love Portugal. I know that a lot of people have traveled there more now, but there are places that most Americans don't go to. So there's a place called Alentejo, which is in the center and to the right, that it reminds me a lot of southern Italy in landscape in some ways. It's not the same, but the quality of the food is what you might experience in Tuscany. And then there's just a lot of history there, medieval history, Roman history,
Wow.
and cool things to see. Um, another place that I has touched my heart a lot that's historic in different ways is Vietnam.
Oh,
And
interesting. That would not
I,
have been at the top of my mind.
and this type of history is not probably what you might see in Europe, right? But
No,
I've been to Vietnam twice, and I I have learned so much by traveling there just with the American history component of it, the French history component of it, the ethnic diversity that's there. And so there's just a lot of things to learn from a historical perspective that we as Americans aren't taught.
right?
And then, okay,
Interesting.
this one's resonating because I literally just went there and it's again totally not what most people want to do. But Jordan, right? It's in the middle of a lot of chaos. We all see it on the news every day. But what's fascinating about that country is how their agreements are structured. And truly, it's not advantageous for them to be in wars. So it's generally a calm, safe place, which most of us don't know. And the history is fascinating, right? Because it goes from biblical times till now. So
Wow.
you have the historic biblical sites, you have Petra, but there's also a lot of local history in the deserts and just knowledge that can be shared. It's so beautiful. And the people are kind and welcoming when they have no reason to be that way. So,
Right.
and of course, I'll just say this, there's tons of history in Europe and other places in the world, but I'm just offering maybe some
Unique.
places that you haven't considered before.
Well, and I think that's the beautiful part of having a conversation, right? And the economy, if you scale and understand the value of being able to plan something that will be a forever memory, a forever experience, and really able to scale that in a way that can be also economical, right?
Mhm.
Not blow the budget. And I think
Yep.
people underestimate, oh, I'm not going to hire somebody to do this for me. The amount of money when you're looking at any type of highly curated experience like this, the value is so incredible. And the
Yeah.
journey is so much better, so much more improved. And the money savings is very much a real thing because
Yeah,
they don't know what
because
you don't know, right?
yeah, and when you're trying to plan it on your own to, I don't know, like Jordan, that's really hard because you just don't know, right? And things are in Arabic but it can also be very economical. And I'll just use Jordan as the example. They're going through an economic crisis right now because their tourism industry has been decimated. So
Hmm.
they want people to come. It is economical because it's just not a the industry is struggling right now. So
Right. And I think that there's a built-in DNA of fear because there's only
there
one
is.
narrative, right?
That's
So
right.
the
That's right.
narrative is not necessarily accurate oftentimes. And you can have something that will be so absolutely something, an experience I always say when I talk to you, honey, is your voice and your storytelling allow for an experience that's unique and beautiful and just yummy. That's the word. It's just yummy when you
Yeah, thank
talk
you.
about these places that you go. And that's why I really, really wanted to bring you on the show because in part, this is about storytelling and bringing valuable insight and an awareness of journeys, people's life, people's journeys. And you've had such an interesting one since I've met you. You were so lucky
Yeah,
in your work, right? You
yeah.
found, a side note, everyone, Vanessa loves traveling, so she found a career that would allow her to be valuable within an organization that also allowed her a leg of travel. Brilliant. Brilliant. Hmm.
And building on what you're saying, I have no shortage of stories from my travel experiences. And, I always tell my clients, you now have opened Pandora's box. So I get really excited and have so much to say about it. So I always have to remind them if I'm telling you too much or it's not interesting, you just have to tell me because I can talk
Yeah.
about travel forever. So
Well, and in many cases, what you've created is a longevity of a relationship because through that, it's like, okay, next year, because there's an affordability factor, right? I'm sure everybody was like, I want to do all of it. I want to go
yeah,
to all these places. But you can plan something out that if you're able to have the luxury of traveling a couple times a year, you're like, okay, I love that idea. I want to do that. What's the best time of year to do that?
exactly.
And
Yes.
then all of a sudden
Because
you're forecasting a 3-year
the
plan.
you have a roadmap in
Hmm.
the consulting terms, but it's true because, some people will come and say, "Oh, I want to go to this destination." It's hurricane season at that time of year. Not
Right.
not probably the best time to go, right? Or Vanessa, I want to go on a safari. When is the best time to go? Well, it's typically the northern hemisphere's summer or on the shoulder of our summer, right? Because the bush is starting to brown and it becomes easier to see animals. So you're
Right.
absolutely right that we can
Wow.
think through what makes sense for the place you want to go and the time of year because
Yeah.
you don't want to show up to Vietnam during rainy season. It's
No, that would
miserable.
be unpleasant. Well,
So it's fair point.
so we do have show notes. So explain to us how are the different ways people can find you, look at your portfolio of work, set up a
Yeah,
consultation call. And of course, we'll have this in all of our locations that we drop the show. We're
yep,
on, we're on Google, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook. We're on our website, and we want to make sure we're able to cross the T's, dot the I's, and make sure everyone has the opportunity when they meet a guest that they would love to learn more about. So share the intel with us and
yep.
we'll make sure to put it in the notes.
Yep, and I'll email it to you. You can email me, so vanessa.abby@fora.travel. So just send a note and say, "Hey, Vanessa, I heard you speak to Cari Ann or whatever," and say, "I'm interested in having a conversation or I want to go to X," right? And I'll respond to you and we'll figure it out. Um, if you want to see a little bit more of where I've traveled to, some of the photographs, if you want some travel inspiration, I have a public Instagram account. It's called adventures underscore VK Abby, and you can follow me. And that's another place you can reach out to me via the messaging capability. It might give you some, as I said, travel inspiration. And then I do have a web page. I will give you that versus verbalize it.
Yeah.
But on that page, there's a button that you can email me directly. There's also a way to subscribe to my newsletter. And so my goal this year is to be more diligent and sharing that regularly. And my vision for it is every month featuring a little bit of a different destination so you can get some perspective on where you might travel to.
Oh, I
So
love
those are
that.
probably the three best ways to find me.
So we're going to do a blog on Vanessa, and in the blog, we'll backlink that so people can have access. In the link, we'll backlink the newsletter so people
Yeah,
can go ahead and register too.
subscribe.
Would be
Yep.
so great. That would be
Yeah,
so
would
great.
love it.
Oh my gosh, honey,
So,
it's such a privilege I'm just so happy for you.
oh, thank
There's
you.
nothing better than finding a passion that you can share with others, right? And
Yeah, it's your
travel,
your gift.
it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
Well,
Vanessa.
thank you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to come chat with you and your listeners. That's also a huge
Absolutely.
privilege. So
Oh,
thank you for
thank you so much, honey. All right. Enjoy this snowy day.
Thank you. You too. Be safe, stay
Hmm.
warm.
Vanessa Abbe, everyone. Really, please do. We put so much time and energy into putting this show together. Check out Vanessa Abbe's website and her Facebook page and her Instagram page. Don't forget to click and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can watch all of our Fly the Coop episodes or our lifestyle and listing videos if you're interested in learning more about real estate. We're here for you. Thank you so much for joining us today. See you next time on Fly the Coop.